Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7's rosters Blackhawks. So we're going back through every team in Blood Bowl 2020, and we're having a look at some of the most competitive and or fun rosters for Blood Bowl 7s. Now, we've done these videos before, but the rules for Blood Bowl 7s changed in the Deathzone supplement, and we're only just getting back around to going through and bringing these rosters up to date. So we're going to take the experience of 2 years of Blood Bowl 2020 and mix it with an outrageous amount of Blood Bowl 7s to bring to life some of the best and or entertaining rosters that we've got for Blackhawks in 7s. Okay, so why would you want to run Blackhawks in 7s? Well, maybe you want to try 7s out and all you've got is the starter box. Maybe you love Blackhawks because, to be fair, they are a brilliant, fun team in Blood Bowl. I'm running them in League at the moment and they're just excellent. They are dominating sometimes, but they've got that little stunty twist that means actually sometimes they can let you down. It's a really fun challenge. Now, for 7s, you don't have the line of slaughter, the line of scrimmage, so you don't get those free blocks that you would normally in Blood Bowl 11s. So when it comes to Blackhawks for 7s, what are some of their strengths? Well, the positionals themselves are the strengths. So the Blackhawks, even though they are slow, at movement 4, which can be very slow, they're really strong. That strength 4 is going to be brilliant. And on this roster where you can have up to 4 positionals, so 4 of them can be these strength 4 pieces, they are going to be one of the strongest teams that you can run in 7s. You do have access to the Troll as well, so they can be, I think, maybe the 3rd or 4th strongest team available. But you've got that reasonable agility 4+ for them. So even if all your goblins get murdered and all you've got left is Blackhawks, they're fine. It's going to be fine. The strength of them, though, is when they get stuck in the mosh pit. So in Blood Bowl 11s, this happens every game. In 7s, you kind of have to wait for the action. You've either got to pounce in, rush it. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. If you are playing Blackhawks, you need to make sure that those Blackhawks get involved in a scrum. If a Blackhawk is starting its turn in base contact with somebody else, you're doing it right, because at that point their skill set really comes in, and in 7s it does give you an extra bonus. So Brawler is going to make them more consistent when they're taking their 2-die blocks. The fact they're strength 4 means they're probably going to get 2-die blocks most of the time as well. Brawler means you can reroll one both down result for free. So push both down, re-roll that both down. Now in 11s it can be challenging sometimes, because you can be like, well, do I re-roll the pool using a team re-roll, or do I just take the both down and free roll it? In 7s you're not likely to have a huge amount of re-rolls, so Brawler becomes more of a frequent opportunity. It doesn't work when you're blitzing. That's why it's important that you get these guys in the scrum. And then you've got their second skill, which is grab. So even if a Blackhawk is not quite in the scrum, you may be able to farm a block off to that Blackhawk with another Blackhawk using grab. So 2 dice, it's only a push or whatever, grab him to the next Blackhawk, and you can keep chaining those 2-die blocks. And with Brawler, they're really more like 2 1/3 die blocks. So you actually get those blocks more and more and more if you can get them into the scrum. Now, if you're playing a more open field game, the Blackhawks do suffer a bit, and this kind of strays into their weaknesses, which is their medium speed. You've got a Troll at speed 4, and you've got the Blackhawks at speed 4. And then you've got the Goblins at speed 6. Now, the Goblins are excellent. Edge 3+ is brilliant. Movement 6 is fine for a speed, but the fact that they're stunty, have that Edge 3+, and dodge means that their dodges are always going to be 3+ with a reroll, basically. There's going to be some times where they're not, sure, but more often than not, you're going to have an 8 out of 9 chance to go and take that dodge and cut a corner off, which is going to make them feel a lot faster than movement 6. If you're movement 6 and having to chain it around places because you don't have dodge, it's not far. Movement 6 in a straight line through a tackle zone is half the pitch, right? So they are a lot faster than they feel. And that thick skull keeps them in the game way more than you'd think. So they're 5k more than an ordinary goblin, but they stick around way more, which really helps you with the cost of your players. So weaknesses for the team: medium speed, we talked about that, medium agility, the Blackhawks edge 4+, the Troll is edge 5+, and the Goblins are edge 3+. So it's fine. They are not the most agile things in the world. Once a Goblin's got the ball, you're in good odds to be able to move him to where you want him to go to. Getting hold of the ball is going to be challenging, and they don't have any sure hands on this roster, so getting that free reroll to pick up the ball is not going to be the easiest thing. Now, in a league, you can take some random doubles and maybe you'll swing right and grab a sure hands on a goblin. That's a great place to be. If you're playing a constructed format or an expansion league where you get to choose your skills, sure hands is going to be one that fits nicely into this team. I love Black Orcs. In 7s, they are strong, but they can get outmaneuvered. So they're actually a really fun challenge, a really different challenge in 7s than they are in 11s. And for me, more Blood Bowl, well, more challenges is more Blood Bowl, and more Blood Bowl is more better. Okay, so let's start off with their rosters. So very beginning, we're going to go with 4 Brawlers. So 4 Black Orc blockers, I think they're called now. I refer to them as Brawlers because they're the Black Orcs that have Brawler. They're Brawlers. So 4 Brawlers, 3 Goblins, 7 players. This comes in at 495,000. So 7's rosters are made up of 600k. The problem here is that you cannot take 4 Black Orcs and a reroll of this roster. So you're left with this 105,000 gold pieces left over, which leaves you in a bit of an interesting middle ground. But the cool thing about the new edition of 7s is you've got some flexibility. You've got some fun choices that you can make. I'm just going to double check that costing because that looks really good. Anyway, you got 105 to play with here, so assistant coaches are really important in 7s. If you can't buy a reroll, taking assistant coaches is going to get you to the place where you've got a better chance of getting that reroll. Brilliant coaching is the 7 on the kickoff table now, so 1 in 6 kickoffs is going to be brilliant coaching, and when you roll off against your opponent with brilliant coaching, you are adding +1 per assistant coach. So having a few assistant coaches is going to help swing you that reroll. 495. Yeah, okay, cool. So you can lean into your assistant coaches to make sure that you win that 1 in 6 times. The other thing you can do, all right, fine, you can buy 2 goblins. Okay, you can have a bench. Having a bench with Black Orcs is probably a good idea because goblins, even though they are tougher than your regular goblin, they're going to get splatted. Someone's going to have tackle. Someone's going to take him out. A goblin's going to go for it, fail a dodge, double to it, and just stack themselves. So having an 8th player is never a bad thing when half of your roster is strength 2, okay? But you do have desperate measures that you can buy as well. So we dropped this roster down to sub 500 to give the option of buying 2 desperate measures. Now, a desperate measure is a new thing for Blood Bowl 7s where you roll a d8 at the start of the game and you will get a random boon. One of them is a wizard. There's some great stuff you can get. They're really fun, really narrative, but they are very swingy. So if you want to be consistent with this roster, I think the right thing to do is pick up 4 goblins instead of 3. That'll take you to 540, and then you can take 3 assistant coaches to get you the biggest chance at winning that kickoff result. That would be the consistent thing to do. You can go fun narrative and double dip with desperate measures. I think middle ground of the 8th player and then a desperate measure is a really fun place to be, but assistant coaches will give you the most consistent shot at getting that extra reroll. But there is also a troll on this roster and you can fit it in. So 1 troll, 3 Black Orcs, 3 Goblins brings you to 520,000. That's 7 players, and everything we've just said about buying your extra stuff is true. You can pick up the 8th player, that extra Goblin, which I think I'd probably recommend in this roster, and then fill out the rest with assistant coaches. Or you can just take an assistant coach and a desperate measure and just hope for the best. Now, when it comes to this roster, you've got the troll. The troll has really stupid, so is going to take some babysitting. It is also not fast, but it is just as not fast as the Black Orc that it is replaced. So as long as you've got a friend to keep that troll active, then actually you've upgraded your strength and you've got that integral mighty blow. So your Black Orcs are more than likely to be able to swing 2-die blocks, but your troll is even more likely to be able to swing a 2-die block. And I really don't recommend blitzing with a troll, but every now and again it's going to be a terrifying prospect for your opponent to have to face. Now, when it comes to skills in 7s, if you're playing League out of the Deathzone book, it's all randoms and whatever you get is whatever you get. It's a really good way to try new skill combinations on players, and it can be a lot of fun. If you're playing an expansion league like 7 Super Series or constructed tournament format like South Coast, then actually this is a tier 2 team, so you're likely to get a couple of primary skills and maybe even a secondary. So skills wise, if you're running the troll, when it comes to a big guy, block is often the exact right skill. It's going to keep him more consistent on offense and defense when it's in a fight. The thing is with the troll in 7s it is likely to end up on a one-on-one matchup with a lineman from the other team. That's great, that's fun, but actually a good coach is going to be able to screen off the troll from the real action. Maybe they've got a zombie, maybe they've got a snotling that they're just going to go give to the troll, feed the troll that. If he's got block, that means you're better off to be able to actually pow that dude down and move on with your life. Pro is also worth considering for every player in Blood Bowl 7s, but particularly the big guys. Pro allows you on a 3+ to reroll a single dice from some dice pools. So if you roll a 2-die block, you can use Pro on a 3+ to reroll one of those dice. If you fail really stupid, you can use Pro on a 3+ to reroll that failed roll. So Pro just keeps you more consistent, whether it's a troll, a black orc, or a goblin. Now, the troll does give you the option to go strong arm and throw things. Throwing things got worse as the rules got more clarified from the FAQ. Now, if you throw a player and that player hits another player and it's a turnover no matter what else happens. So the paratrooping tactic of chucking a guy the other side of the pitch is going to be more of a risky thing, and it's going to be more of the kind of thing you want to do at the end of the turn instead of the start of the turn. But if you want to do that, then strong arm is going to help, and it never hurts to have a +1 to a 1-turn touchdown. Guard is also normally a useful skill for a big guy, but again, you need that big guy to be reasonably reliable, reasonably mobile, and actually the troll is neither of those things. So when it comes to 7s, realistically, unless you've got a double to give the troll Pro to keep him agile, or you really want to throw things to give him strong arm, I would use your skill elsewhere. 3 Blackhawks here. So Blackhawks are really interesting. They've got Brawler, which is a great skill when you're in combat. If you're blitzing, it is of no use to anybody. So giving one of them block to make him a primary blitzer is not a bad thing to do in League. In 7s, it can feel like you're only getting half a skill, but it is going to be really consistent. So giving a Black Orc block is never going to be too bad. Guard is great if you can make sure that they're going to be in the scrum, and the same is kind of true of Mighty Blow. A little bit extra removal every now and again is going to be really useful because you are going to be throwing a lot of dice and you are going to be dropping people quite frequently. The other thing to consider is 1 Black Orc with Tackle. Now, the problem with these guys, even though they're strength 4, they are only movement 4. So if you are edge to edge covering with one guy, it's going to be a couple of go for it to reach them and to blitz them. If you're willing to take that risk, then Tackle on a strength 4 piece is fantastic. And if your opponent tries to sneak into your backfield with a dodge target, then that Black Orc is going to be able to basically delete anybody that wanders back there. So a Tackle Black Orc is a great thing, especially in 7s. I always recommend at least 1 tackle piece where you can, because every 7s roster tries to sneak dodge in. Block is the best skill in 7s, dodge is the second best skill in 7s, so having that tackle is going to be really useful to be able to just counter that dodge that's going to try and find its way into basically every roster. Then you've got the Goblins. These goblins are fine. They're perfect. As far as 7s is considered, they do a great job of what they do. If you've only got primary skills, there's not a lot that you really want to give them. I used to recommend Jump Up, but now Throw Teammates got less fun because of that FAQ change. I wouldn't recommend it quite so highly. Sure Feet, Sprint, and Sidestep, though, are going to keep those goblins fast. Okay, honestly, I love Sure Feet because it makes that goblin basically movement 8 all of the time. Nothing's a guarantee, but it's Blood Bowl. Nothing's a guarantee in Blood Bowl, but having one dude with Sure Feet is going to make you go from a speed 6 to basically speed 8. And that is quite a huge jump for one skill. So I don't mind doing that, making basically a poor man's war dancer. Now, if it is possible to give a goblin a secondary skill, if it's random, go general, everything's good, right? If you get to pick, then Sure Hands on 1 goblin is going to be brilliant for your team. You get yourself a primary ball carrier. He's already got dodge. He's movement 6, so actually he's pretty reliable and pretty defensive. And actually that Sure Hands is going to come in handy frequently during the game. Adding to that, block is a fantastic skill, even on a goblin, and wrestle goes really well because that goblin's going to be able to get to wherever you want to go. If you want to be blitzing the ball carrier with a goblin, then actually Dauntless is okay, or Wrestle is okay. 2-die up with Wrestle is a very high success rate. It's a sneaky one that people don't consider. And there's also Break Tackle, which I do love on stunty players. Stunty 3+, Break Tackle allows you to get +1 to your die roll after you've rolled it if you fail your dodge roll. So once per turn, that goblin's going to be dodging basically anywhere on a 2+ with a reroll. So actually, it's a really good one to get your Goblin mobile. If you do have doubles, though, Sure Hands block, fantastic on those Goblins. If you don't, then Sure Feet is going to make him basically feel speed 8. Now, this roster is 520, so again, you've got the choice of a coach, Desperate Measure, or a Goblin and a coach. That is really seasoned to your taste. Now, we haven't seen a reroll on this roster so far, but you can squeak one in. So Troll 2B reroll, Troll, 2 Blackhawks, 4 Goblins to 7 players, 1 reroll brings you in at 595. So one thing we didn't talk about when we talked about Goblins is the ability for them to take Leader on a secondary skill. That will alleviate your pressure at getting a team reroll. The problem with that is that the Goblins are not the most resilient. Now, they do have dodge, so actually every 2-die block has got that little bit better defense, but the Goblin armor is low, their strength is low, so having Leader on a Goblin, it's going to be great because you're going to have that reroll, but you really got to use it fast because he's going to get targeted in the first half and he may not even be there in the second half. So as much as I love a Leader when it's allowed in 7s, it is risky to put it on a Goblin, and I don't believe putting it on a Blackhawk is all right. They've got plenty of resilience. It's actually not a bad idea. You could sneak Leader with a double onto a Blackhawk and kind of make him a little mini Gazgul who's leading your team. Yeah, I like that, actually. I like Tackle. I like Leader now. Now I've talked myself into it. You could even put it on the Troll. That's pretty resilient. But the point is, with this reroll, this roster here, you've got that reroll, so you don't need to consider taking the Leader skill. But if you do, it gives you 2 rerolls. And then in 7s, that is entirely outrageously consistent, okay? Every time you don't fail a turnover, you basically get another turn. So if you've got 2 rerolls or 1 reroll, you're going to be playing basically 7 turns in a game of 6 turns, and that's a real boon. So you lose a Blackhawk, you backfill it with a Goblin, you've got the Troll, you've got 2 Blackhawks, you've got a reroll. It's not a bad mid-range build. Or you can drop the Troll down and put him into being your 3rd Blackhawk. So the 4 Brawler build at the beginning, we've basically taken a Blackhawk, turned him into a Goblin, and taken a reroll in their place. You only get 30k left over, so it's 1 assistant coach basically, but this will give you the consistency of having that reroll with the reliability of not having a Troll. So I do like that. It depends on your skill set. If you can sneak a Leader reroll in, then actually I think in some cases I'd rather have that 4B build because you've got the cash for Desperate Measures and assistant coaches, or a bench with a Goblin. But if you don't have the skill access, then 3 Blackhawks, 4 Goblins and a reroll is going to keep you in the game basically at all points. And because I promised fun rosters as well, the Stunty World with rerolls, this is a fun one. So if you ignore all the Blackhawks and just focus on the fact that you've got the second best Goblins in the game, because obviously Underworld Goblins with their mutation access are slightly better. These Goblins with Thick Skull are pretty great though. The Stunty World build, 1 Troll, 7 Goblins and a reroll, I think takes you to 550. That gives you enough cash to either take a Desperate Measure or a coach. And the other thing you can do is fob off that Troll and get another reroll. So actually it's basically 7 Goblins, 2 rerolls, or 7 Goblins, a reroll and a Troll. It's entirely up to you. Obviously the Troll gives you that lumbering muscle for the roster, which is going to be great. Having that Mighty Blow and Strength 5 is going to be really useful, and you've got the reroll there to be able to do stuff with it. It's an interesting one. I wouldn't recommend it as a highly competitive roster, but if you're a big fan of Trolls and Goblins, then actually, short of running a Goblin roster, this is a fun way to do it. But for me, I think this roster is probably the best place to start to get a good feel of how Blackhawks operate. Now, they are a challenge in 7s. There's no line up and knock them down with Blackhawks in 7s. You actually have to wait or move up to get in there. But the beautiful thing here is that if you give your opponent the first crack at your Blackhawk team, it's probably going to be fine. And then your opponent is going to find themselves based by your Brawler machines, and it's that the point where this meat grinder really turns. And 4 Blackhawks with Brawler and Grab are going to be able to share those opponents between them. You're going to throw a ton of dice. This is a team that requires significant positioning in 7s, but if your opponent ends up at the beginning of your turn with 3 dudes in contact with 3 or 4 of your Blackhawks, you're in for an absolute pounding at that point. And that's for 500k. And the reason I like this roster is because you get that flexibility of having assistant coaches to steal that reroll, to have the 8th player to recover from their goblin being down, or to just take 2 desperate measures and hope for like a double wizard and just go absolutely crazy using those desperate measures. It's a really fun place, but what's happening on the board doesn't change. You've got 4 strength 4 pieces with some good combat skills. You've got 3 stunty dodge pieces that are just fine. It is a tier 2 team with, I think, tier 1 challenges. If you can get this team working, it will be brilliant fun, but it can fall apart if you're not good with your positioning. So it's a good test of your Blood Bowl coaching. I love this. Love Blackhawks in 11s. Really like them in 7s too. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Let me know which of these rosters you like and whether you've run Blackhawks in 7s yet. And if you haven't, get to it. But we'll be back again soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.